I survived 1,000 days in hardcore Minecraft, where if I die, I lose everything forever. Just for some perspective, that's over 300 hours of gameplay, and I'm here to show you what I've done. I hope you enjoy. Now, if you watched my 500 days video, you know that I took things pretty slow. So for these next 500 days, I really wanted to challenge myself and work on bigger projects and see what I could get done. I really do love this base area, but I'm sick of it at the same time. Basically, I need a vacation. And luckily for me, just a few hundred blocks away was the perfect place for me to begin my first mega project. Now, the idea that I had for this ocean monument base was pretty ambitious, so I knew it would take some planning. So naturally, I started drawing things out. Okay, so as a recap, ocean monument, guardian farm in the middle, box around it, made of glass, gonna have an aquarium, really cool aquarium. Then we're gonna drain out 4 quadrants, 1 on each side, and we're gonna have an entrance on the bottom, an entrance on the top. We're gonna have these passageways that actually lead all the way through, but they're gonna be through the water, underneath the water, so they're gonna be like water tunnels. Pretty cool, I think. Yeah, that was a bit confusing. But the important thing was that I had a plan, I had a goal, I had something that I wanted to execute. And most importantly, I was motivated. So I got myself fully geared up in invis, water breathing, and night vision, took off all my clothes, and I headed into the ocean monument because I knew if I had any chance of actually doing something cool here, I had to loot the thing first. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You gotta kill the other guardians because those things will just ruin your day. And despite the fact that this footage is actually hilarious because you just see my wings and my boots just randomly floating around, this actually went pretty well. Luckily, the 24 minutes of potion effects was more than enough, and I actually found the first 2 Elder Guardians pretty quickly. Now, I did have to do some searching for the 3rd one, and after a while, I actually kind of gave up, went to the top of the monument, and tried to dig my way through, even with mining fatigue. Yeah, that didn't work. So I went back in, and finally made my way to the top, found the Elder Guardian, took them out with relative ease, and yeah, we had this thing pretty much cleared, except for one very important thing, and that was the sponges. And luckily for us, we did have a sponge room. Obviously, I would have liked to have had a couple of sponge rooms, but just the fact that I had one meant that we could actually get working on this project, so I was pretty excited about that. Now that that was done, and realizing how much I don't like making potions and using potions, I decided that it was a good idea to pursue a conduit, because we were going to spend a lot of time underwater clearing out the rest of this monument. And luckily for me, I had already found a Heart of the Sea earlier on in the series while looting a random buried treasure, but I didn't have the Nautilus shells. So I went out in the ocean in front of my old base and we started killing a whole bunch of drown. It took a long time, like literally 3 hours straight just to get all the Nautilus shells that I needed. But I got pretty lucky too. There's a chance. Let's see here. A very small chance. Did I get it? Oh, I got it. I got a trident. Oh my god. Oh, he has a shell and a trident. Oh my god. Are we gonna get both? No way. Just imagine for a second. Oh my god, we got both. Holy cow. Yeah, I somehow managed to get 4 tridents just from that drown killing session. Pretty crazy, actually. Especially considering I've killed hundreds of more drowns since then on this project and haven't got another one yet. Finally, we had the conduit. I was feeling good, got the conduit in place. No more water breathing potions. So I figured, what a great time to start getting rid of all the water. Oh, why am I like this? But anyways, yes, from then we did commence one of the, if not the biggest grinds in all of Minecraft. If you've done it, you know, we had to drain the ocean monument. And to do that, we had to first get a whole bunch of sand. I could have used gravel, but sand is just easier. If there's a desert near you, just go get a bunch of sand. Anyways, yeah, I ended up filling up like 12 shulker boxes of sand. And then I built this massive dirt platform way above the ocean monument. This is not necessary, but it did look cool and also kind of kept me elevated away from the guardians. So when I was working, they couldn't shoot me. It actually was pretty nice. But anyways, I built the sand all the way up like 28 blocks in this grid pattern that you're showing. And then I got to do one of the most satisfying things I've ever done in Minecraft. This project took such a long time, but just this moment, these 30 seconds were so worth it. I hope you enjoy, because we got to drop all this sand and make probably the coolest time lapse I have ever seen. But it was time to get back to work, so I got my hoe, gathered my sponges, and we started draining out all of the water inside of each of these little columns. And let me tell you, I felt fast. I was placing sponges, I was picking up sponges, I was drying the sponges out in the nether, and before I knew it, I had 1, 2, 3 of the columns done. I finally did finish draining out all the water, but it did take like 3.5 or 4 hours. It was so tedious by the end. So I changed things up a bit and went exploring in search of a coral reef. And luckily for me, there was actually one like very close to the ocean monument, like only 1,000 blocks away, so I was pretty excited about that. I put down the conduit and I got collecting a whole bunch of these blocks because I knew that I wanted to use a bunch of the coral in my aquarium build eventually. I knew at this point that I wanted to remove the ocean monument, but in order to do that, I needed a beacon first. And to get a beacon, there was some danger that was in my way still. And before I faced that danger, I needed a totem of undying, so I went ahead and decided to build a raid farm. Now the design that I went with is by Mysticat, and let me tell you, this was the simplest farm that I think I've ever built in Minecraft. It was seriously like 45 minutes from the time I started the farm to when the first totem was in my hand. Now, having completed our first raid, albeit cheesing our first raid, and making all of our villagers proud, I was feeling confident because I finally had a totem in my hand, but to fight the wither, I needed wither skulls. So I went to the nether, found a whole bunch of wither skeletons, took them out, and finally had enough skulls. I took the sacrificial skulls down into the mine shaft to prepare for battle. I had strength potions, healing potions, a bucket of milk, a smite 5 axe, bow and arrow, full armor. I was ready to go. No more procrastination. It was time to fight the wither. I placed down the soul sand, the first head, the second head, put on the third head, ran away, and I got ready for the chaos that was about to ensue. Things were off to a great start. I was hitting bow shots, the wither was taking damage, I felt confident, I felt powerful, and then this happened. Oh, it's just a little bit of gravel, right? Well, you see, the gravel actually exposed the cave up above, which the wither then decided to fly into, so now I couldn't see it, and actually it was above me. So I panicked and had to spend the rest of the fight slowly inching in and out of the tunnel, shooting the wither right from above me and instantly getting hit every single time. Finally, after like 10 minutes of playing tag with the wither, I decided I needed a new strategy, so I dug out to the left all the way around and came in behind the wither. Finally, I had a clear shot, and even this wasn't that easy, but we finally managed to hit our bow shots enough to bring it down to half health, and from there we took out the smite 5 axe and went to town on the wither, finally killing it and getting our first nether star. There was one thing stopping me from clearing the monument, and that was all the guardians in the water inside of the structure itself. And this was no easy task, but with the help of my conduit and sectioning off the monument into little rooms one at a time, I was able to go through one by one, put my sponges in there, and slowly but surely remove all the water. You don't really realize how large these things are on the inside until all the water's gone, but wow, they are pretty spacious. But enough admiring this abandoned guardian home. It was time to destroy this thing. So I dug down and exposed this massive abandoned mine shaft below me. That wasn't gonna be fun to deal with later. Fought off this poisonous thing, found some diamonds. That never gets old, by the way. Put down the iron, placed the beacon, activated haze 2, and we got destroying the monument. At this point, I finally had the entire bounding box of the ocean monument fully drained, and I felt so proud. Oh my goodness, it felt so good to have this done. Because now we could build a guardian farm, which would allow us to use the guardians for all their precious drops and all the XP that we would ever need. Now, I went with a guardian farm designed by NotNotBrock. There's a couple of reasons why. Firstly, it's extremely efficient. If this farm is fully optimized, it's actually 3 times faster than an Enderman farm, which is pretty crazy. The other reason is just that I'm an idiot. I'll be sure to leave a link to this farm in the description because NotNotBrock goes over everything in so much more detail than I ever could, but it is a very cool farm. As you can see, the farm is a plush shape and actually uses dispensers with water buckets to turn the farm on and off, so you can actually control whether or not you want any guardians to spawn at all. From there, I built up the spawning bounty box of the farm with these glass walls, and then dug down below to create the funnel that all the guardians were going to fall into. These long and skinny glass pillars actually hold the lava in place so that the guardians take damage on their way down. Finally, after placing down literally hundreds of signs, I went and dug down into the killing chamber where we would dispose of the guardians all the way at the bottom of the farm. I really love this farm, by the way, because it also allows me to have an AFK mode and an XP mode, so when I'm just in the area working on my base, the farm is still active and I'm getting all of the passive drops from the Guardians, but whenever my tools are low or I need XP, I go down there, hit this button, and then all of a sudden I get all the XP from the Guardians. It's such a cool system. With the Guardian farm done, I now needed a good source for Dark Prismarine. Honestly, I still can't wrap my head around why it's this expensive, but I digress. So the next thing I decided to do was build a Squid Farm. Now, I'm going with the Squid Farm by El Mingo, because El Mingo makes some amazing farms, and this one was super simple to build. Now, to make this farm, I needed to find a river, because squid spawn abundantly inside river biomes. And luckily for me, there was a river right near my initial base that was actually very isolated, meaning that squid were spawning in pretty mass amounts already. Honestly, I could have just like hung out here for a while with my looting 3 sword and pretty much killed all the squid I needed to, but I figured the farm would be a bit more fun. So I started off by building this top section. This is the outline of the actual farm itself. At that point, I grabbed my sponges and drained this little section of river so that I could control where the squids actually spawned. From there, I put my beacon down and started digging out below for the actual farm. And then I got the fence gates in place, which actually hold the water in place. From there, I dug down even more, put some hoppers in, put a collection chest, and the farm was pretty much ready to go. I built this AFK platform way up in the sky, and even though I don't really AFK in this world, I did sit here for like 15 minutes just to see how effective the farm actually was. And despite almost killing myself on the way down, the farm works really well. I honestly was not expecting this much productivity. With the Guardian farm done, and now having full access to all of the different Prismarine blocks, I was ready to make this area look good. And the first thing I had to do was replace this sand wall with glass, because after all, we were gonna build an aquarium here, and aquariums have glass. And to fill in just the inner wall with glass, it was gonna take about 3 shulker boxes full, and that was a lot to smelt. Luckily for me, I was surrounded by kelp, so I actually used the dried kelp from the ocean to smelt more dried kelp, to get more dried kelp, to use the dried kelp to smelt the sand to get the glass. Does that make any sense? Probably not. And even though this was a pretty tedious project, it was definitely worth it because this looked so much better with that sand gone. I also realized that I needed a place to store all of the drops from the Guardian farm because these single chests just were not cutting it. Also, a lot of junk was building up. I really only cared about 2 drops from this Guardian farm, and that was the Prismarine shards and the Prismarine crystals. I know at some point I can go ahead and use the cod that the Guardians drop to trade with villagers, but for right now that wasn't really in my plan, so I ended up making item filters that only kept those 2 Prismarine items. After messing around with it for like 2 hours, I finally had it set up to only keep what I wanted and then dispense the rest of it in this lava. That also meant that I had 2 separate water elevators on each side for the different drops. I had one for Prismarine shards and one for Prismarine crystals, and this meant that I could get kind of creative with my storage system. So I designed these corner pillars that fit into the area really well and also held a bunch of storage for all the different blocks. Also, this is probably a little bit overkill in terms of storage, but I would rather have too much than not enough with something like this. Next, I wanted a better way to get into the Guardian farm because the current staircase just kind of sucked. I didn't know exactly what I wanted, but I knew I wanted a sleek, seamless, and kind of hidden staircase, but that required redstone, and we know how that goes. So I went on the YouTubes and looked around for a while and ended up finding this 2 wide staircase by Quipla. It was actually a relatively simple build, and I liked it a lot because it only required a small footprint to be built. So after digging the hole and placing down all the redstone components, we actually had a working staircase. I ended up using the warped pressure plates to activate the door because they actually blend in quite well with the dark prismarine that we have going on here. I also added a simple 2x2 piston door right once you go down the staircase that leads right into the Guardian farm itself. From there, the last thing to do was decorate the staircase leading down into the Guardian farm kill chamber, and this project was actually done. Now it was time to build the aquarium, and I was really excited because I had never built anything like this before in Minecraft. To start things off, I went ahead and added the outer glass wall of the aquarium to help get a bounding box around it. From there, I went in with my beacon and my conduit and flattened out all of the rocky terrain that was inside of the aquarium. It wasn't going to stay flat, but I needed a good base to work off of. I took a look around and I realized that the inner glass wall was lacking a lot of detail. So after some designing and a lot of trial and error, I went through and added these borders with some different prismarine blocks. It's pretty simple, but I really do think it adds a lot to the area. Now, the last thing I could do before actually working on the aquarium itself was I had to figure out the grand entrances into the center area. Because if you recall my base ideas, I actually plan on having 2 different entrances on each side of this area. And these are going to cut right through the aquarium, so naturally I need to make them first. I added a floor pattern with some prismarine and some sea lanterns and then covered the whole thing with glass to add a depth effect. From there, I built these tall wooden pillars on each side, and these added such a nice contrast to the prismarine. Then I filled the inner walls with glass because I wanted you to still be able to see in the aquarium when you walk through these entrances. Then all I had to do was go through with my sponges and drain all of the water out, and yes, I was getting very tired of doing that at this point. Somebody please remind me next time to go and loot more monuments so I can get more than 30 sponges. Oh my god, that would make this whole thing go so much faster. To carry on with the aquarium build, I went ahead and terraformed the bottom with sand and gravel. The idea here is that I wanted the terrain to be sort of hilly and natural looking, but not too steep because that would just look weird. It was also difficult because if I had any sand placed up against the glass, it looked really weird from the inside, so I had to avoid that. Finally, that was done though, and I went through and lit up the whole area with sea pickles, and that felt really good because I was finally using a different light block. Oh my goodness. From there, I began construction of the coral pillars. These were long, skinny, and twisting coral bits of all different colors that were winding between one another. Basically, picture a regular Minecraft coral reef, but like stretched way out. I'm not gonna lie, these things also look a lot like those inflatable dummies you see outside of car dealerships. I also get really heavy Bikini Bottom vibes from SpongeBob, and I feel like adding a SpongeBob themed build here would look really cool. Might have to do that. I don't know if it looks like it or not, but this used a lot of coral. I had to go back to the coral reef like 4 different times. It was like 4 or 5 shulker boxes full just for this. But that's okay, because I really do love doing organic builds like this because you can just let your mind wander and there's like no rules and it'll still look good. While the plan was to ultimately expand outward from the ocean monument, I decided after some thought that it would make more sense to first utilize the space below me. Also, by this point, I was on day 800 and I had to accept the fact that my mega base plans were not feasible to be done by day 1000. Maybe day 2000, but not now. Anyways, I thought long and hard about what I wanted to put down there, and after bouncing between a few ideas, I decided just to get the beacon and start clearing out the area. At this point, I didn't really know how much space I had, so I wanted to get a better idea. Oh yeah, and that mine shaft below me, not fun to clear out, very awkward. The area that I exposed was massive and sort of goofy looking because of these Guardian Farm storage elevators. Still totally unsure of what would go here, I worked on the entrance to this underground area. I ended up using the same entrance I had from above and just added in a new staircase. I love the block palette I used here, and it was also a great opportunity to add a dark, foggy ceiling, which I think looks good. Here I sat inside this giant and empty hole just weeks before the 1.17 kind of caves, definitely no cliffs update. Mojang had just announced that 1.17 world generation was getting delayed until 1.18, which meant no new caves, including the Lush Caves, which I was personally most excited for. And then it hit me, well, why not make my own Lush Cave down here? I did some testing, and turns out green wool looks very similar to moss blocks. Also, shroom lights placed behind leaves and vines provides a very similar aesthetic to glowberries. So I built the sheep pen and started farming vines down in this big hole. The first major task was to make this big square look cave-like. I spent hours adding shape and contour to the walls, and finally I had something that resembled a naturally generated Minecraft cave. Then I did the same thing with the floor and covered the entire thing with water to resemble the aquifers that we saw in the 1.17 snapshot caves. Looking at this now, I really want to flood this entire area with water at some point from top to bottom. I think that would be so cool. I ended up redesigning these Guardian Farm storage pillars to look like giant support pillars in the cave and totally blended them into the aesthetic of the area. Honestly, I think they look pretty sweet. Now, the initial plan was to have to boat or swim through here, but I ended up building this long winding bridge going all the way through the cave, and I absolutely love walking across it. Then I went through and added more lushness to the entire cave with green wool, mossy stone, leaves, vines. I even built a custom tree because what would one of my world tours be without one? I dotted a bunch of ores into the walls and finished the build with some custom mine shafts hanging from chains. I even added some minecart chests going back and forth, which looks absolutely adorable from below and adds a lot of life to the area. Believe it or not, this project took me over 100 in-game days to complete, so I was already past day 900 at this point. And the reality was that I was extremely burnt out from base building, so I took a break from it all and went end raiding on stream one day. What you are about to watch is exactly not how to play Minecraft. Please never, ever, ever do what I do here. That's all. Whoa, 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 whoa. I'm dead. I'm dead. I'm dead. Oh my god! Holy god! Oh my oh my god. I did so many things wrong in that clip, but honestly, the entire crisis could have been avoided if I just flew away with my elytra as soon as I looked at the Enderman. Either way though, the totem did save my life and I wasn't all that mad about getting the achievement. But since then, I definitely have taken more precautions to be safer and smarter while playing. Having now developed a crippling fear of the end dimension, still scared of it. Terrified, like not going back there. No, we're good. I took my need for exploration into the overworld in search of notch apples. Now, if you don't know, a notch apple is essentially an enchanted golden apple that can only be found in loot chests generated in Minecraft structures. They are rare. On average, a chest in these structures has about a 2% chance of having one, which is exactly why I wanted to collect some for myself. Also, in the event that I ever fell in lava and couldn't escape, eating one of these things would provide me with fire resistance for 5 whole minutes. So I spent the remainder of my 1000 days flying out thousands of blocks from my base, looting desert temples and ruin portals because they are the most common to find and easily noticeable. It took a long time, but I finally found my first notch apple on stream after opening nearly 100 prior chests. I like your name. Love. Oh! Yes! It was so worth the digging! Let's go, baby! We got the money, boys! Woo! Let's go! We finally got one. Oh my goodness, I'm putting it on my hotbar. I ended up finding 3 more notch apples before day 1000, which I'm pretty happy about. I never expected to reach day 1000 in this world, yet alone reach day 1000 and be sharing it with all of you. But there I was, some 40,000 blocks away from world spawn, spending my 1000th day with all of you amazing people. Guys, we freaking did it. We were on day 1000. Oh my goodness. I did not think I'd ever be here. I did not think I would ever get to day 1000 in this world, and somehow I am here. And all of you are with me. I didn't think I'd make it to day 1000, let alone make it to day 1000 with all of you wonderful people here. Thank you so much. Once again, thank you guys so much for all of your support on this amazing journey so far. I got so much done during these 1000 days, but there's still so much more work to be done. I have one thing to ask, and that is for you to like the video and subscribe if you're new here and enjoy the content. It's totally free, and I would love to have you here on this journey with me. Also, I live stream from this hardcore world over at twitch.tv/NotNotBrock every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I would love for you to stop in and say hi. Once again, thank you for everything. I'll see you guys at 2000 days because I have some epic plans.